Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Play Civilization 5 Part 1. As always, my name is eckohour, and I will be the disembodied voice hosting this Let's Play. I'm playing on the Brave New World expansion here, and I'm going to start up a game. Before I get right into this game, I'm going to announce that I think at this point I'm stopping my series on Banished and on Dragon Age. Nobody was really watching them to begin with, and I really wasn't having fun recording them, and I think that kind of reflected in the recordings. Just wasn't as lively, wasn't as animated. I guess I was kind of hoping that Dragon Age would pull me in, but I guess it's kind of showing its age, and it really didn't. So I decided I was going to move on to a game I did enjoy, in tandem with the playthrough for Star Trek Armada 3, and I decided I'm going to start up this game, Civilization 5. I think this is a game that really needs not much introduction, but I'm going to introduce it anyways. It's developed by 2K Games and Firaxis. It is a much recognized franchise started by Sid Meier way back before, pretty much when I was born. I've been playing Civilization pretty much all my life. Really got into it at Civilization 3, played the heck out of Civilization 4. Civilization 5 was a controversial direction for Civilization, and I applaud them for mixing up the game. A lot of people say they didn't like the direction that Civilization 5 went into, but again, a lot of people who played Civilization 4, and if you've played it, I really felt that Civilization 4 was probably the best game out of the franchise, and literally the penultimate, the top of the mound, just the best you could ever get the old Civilization formula to be. I feel like it was perfection in that realm. And Civilization 5, instead of just trying to keep that formula and just spit it back out again, decided, you know what, we're going to take this game in a different direction, trying to keep the same spirit of the Civilization franchise and change up the general gameplay. If you're not familiar with Civilization 5, but you have played the Civilization franchise, there's a few differences. But first, I'm going to go ahead and explain it for anybody who's perhaps never played Civilization before. Civilization is a empire building game. It is you start at the dawn of time, or at the dawn of history, so to speak, leading your nomadic people to found your first city. From there, you build up your empire, expand your borders, build structures in your cities, build up your armies, expand your culture, your science, your wealth, your diplomacy, and your military, to hopefully be the greatest civilization of all time. And there's a lot of complexities and a lot of just general coolness there. I talked about this game a few times in Sins of a Solar Empire. I called this was kind of the quintessential 4X game. Like, if you talk about 4X games, you're talking about Civilization most likely. I love the heck out of this game. Civilization 5 is different from the other games in the Civilization franchise in that, for one, it changes from the grid format into a hex format. So now, instead of everything being in a straight grid, everything's kind of in a hexagonal thing, and that builds into their vast overhaul of the combat system in the game, which I'll explain more, but it allows for only one unit at a time, so armies are much more specialized and much smaller than they were in Civilization's past, but everything is a lot more tactical and a lot more thought out when it comes to combat, and ideally we will see that when we get here in-game. So, the reason I'm doing this Let's Play is, one, because I really enjoy it, but two, because I feel like there's not enough games out there, or there's not really a Let's Play out there that, one, I saw was all that good. There are good Let's Plays out there. But the ones that are good, I don't feel like they're really explaining what they're doing. And the ones that, and for the overwhelming majority, most of the players don't really seem to know what they're doing and are figuring things out. So I decided, not only am I going to I know a bit about Civilization, I like to think, so I'm going to try not to get pig-headed here, but I feel like I know a good bit about Civilization. So I wanted to make a Let's Play, for one, just to get a good Let's Play out there. And I don't want to say like there aren't. There are plenty of good Let's Plays out there, and They're easy to find. But I also wanted to kind of make this a bit of, not a tutorial, so to speak, but kind of explain how the game works, some kind of tips and tricks, so that when you come to play Civilization, if you're a new player, because this game goes on sale on Steam a lot, and I know a lot of people pick it up and, you know, are a little bit of intimidated by it. So I'm going to try and explain this all to you guys, and hopefully get things underway. So I'm going to go back to the main menu here. Usually when you get into game, you're going to be greeted by the menu like this. Play Now, a lot of people will make the mistake of pressing this first. Play Now will immediately jump you into a game with the most recent settings that you had for a game. So if you just want to play another one at the settings you had before, go ahead and hit Play Now. It'll immediately jump you into game. You won't go through any menus, you just hit it and it loads in the game. Set up a game is probably the most common thing that you're going to go. It brings up the menu that I was just on. There's also loading a game, which is obvious. There are scenarios that you can go through. They're hit or miss. I like some of them. I don't like other ones. We're going to focus on the main game here. You can also go into the tutorial. I haven't played the tutorial for this expansion, so I don't know if it's the same as the original one, because I kind of, at this point, I'd kind of known all the features, and I figured I could figure out what needed to be known about Brave New World. The most recent expansion, Brave New World, added a lot of late game features. It added tourism for one, which is supposed to counter culture. It also added some different units, and just a host of other things. Trade routes, to name one, which I love. But if you want to see all the details, it's listed there on all those game descriptions. I'm not here to describe the game, I'm here to play it. So I'm going to go right into it, and I'll describe all the features when we see it, but I wanted to, you know, I want to do that as they come up. So here we are in the Setup a Game menu. We go ahead and go in here. I'm going to play as a random civilization. I like to kind of challenge myself that way. Instead of boosting difficulty right now, I like to try and kind of sit at, I have beaten it on deity. I tend to settle at emperor, but I'm going to play it at king just so that I can talk about what I'm doing and hopefully not have any huge curveballs thrown at me, so I can kind of show a relatively good playthrough. What I would recommend for most players who are new to Civilization, if you've just picked up this game, for one, play the tutorial, because you're going to need what it explains to you. I'm warning you now, it's going to involve a lot of reading, but that's okay. Also, leave your advisors on. It usually comes set standard. I'm not going to have them on, but leave your advisors on. It's under the game options. It'll be under here, and advisors they're kind of annoying because they'll pop up a lot. So if you're an advanced player, if you've played Civilization 5 before, you're going to want to turn them off because they kind of get annoying. But if you're new to this game, they help a lot. Just read what they have to say. Don't skip over them, and this game does a pretty good job of explaining things. You just have to read, which I know stinks, but you know, it helps. Or you can watch me, and I'll do my best to explain it for you. So we're here in our Setup a Game. The first option is to pick your civilization. There's a whole bunch of civilizations. Some of them are unlocked through DLC, some of them are unlocked through expansions. My favorite one, if I had to pick one, I usually like to pick the Russians. I think recently I had kind of developed a like for the Byzantines, because I do like to tend to build a very religious civilization, but I'm going to go random. Oh, another really powerful one is the Morocco. I've had a blast with them. So I'm going to go random civilization for the sake of this game. There's a lot of different map types you can choose from. If you're just looking at the general map types, there's not too much you can pick from here. Just kind of, you can go under additional maps and explorers, which is one of the expansion packs for a bunch of different maps. If you want to, you can go under advanced setup here, which kind of is a lot more complex of a thing. I would not recommend this for new players, but if you've played this game a lot, you can kind of tinker with the settings in here. You can set so it only allows certain victory types. You can set the ratio of resources, what the world looks like, yada yada, how many players are in it, how many city-states. Assuming this video does well, I might make another Civilization 5 that I've been wanting to do. I wanted to do a different Civilization 5 video, but I decided I actually wanted to do this one first. But if this one does well, I'll do another one, and if there's demand for it, where I max out all the civilizations, max out the city-states, make it the biggest map possible, then put it on marathon difficulty, and just have some fun with it. But for this one, we're going to do a standard map size. This is what I would recommend. I basically recommend setting everything to standard for a new player. Difficulty setting, for a brand new player, I would probably leave it at Chieftain and then work your way up. Settler is literally like a sandbox. The AI doesn't do that much. But if you want to learn it with a teensy bit of challenge, I'd play it at Chieftain. Settler just was too easy for me. If you are a Civilization player and you're new to Civilization 5, you probably enjoy Warlord a bit more. But I probably wouldn't go up to Prince until you are familiar with the game, just because it does tend the AI can steamroll you if you're not ready for it. And then pace is the last option. Quick is something I really recommend if you are up for just a really quick setting. It goes through the game really fast. You can probably get it done, maybe not in one night, but or two. If you're doing an early kind of victory type, you can maybe get it done in one night. Standard is the conventional pace for the game. You're probably going to get it done within the week. Epic takes a bit longer. Marathon, each era is pretty much the length, and there's like 7 or 8 eras. I think there might even be 9 now. There's a bunch of eras in this game. Each era is about the length of one standard game, so it's a really long game type. It takes a really long time. I would not pick, it's almost a completely different game, really, when you play as Marathon. I'm going to pick standard just for the sake of this Let's Play. In any case, I feel like I've talked enough. I've introduced you guys to this. We're going to play Continents Plus, standard map size, King difficulty, standard game pace. I'm going to be random civilization. Let's get this underway. Okay, so the game gave us the Indian Empire. I've actually never played them before, so this will be kind of interesting. Each civilization gets a kind of perk or a unique feature about that civilization. I definitely recommend looking into it when you are developing the civilization, because as you get more into the game, the specific kind of perk that your civilization gets should determine how you play the game. So for India, they gain no unhappiness from the number, the unhappiness from the number of cities that they have is doubled, which means you can't usually go for a big civilization. But the unhappiness from the number of citizens is halved. So it really encourages spread out cities and not so much number. So quality over quantity as far as your empire goes. Not usually my playstyle. I usually like to go with big, many-citied empires, but that'll be interesting for this Let's Play. They also get, most civilizations also get 2 unique things that they can build. Sometimes they're both units, sometimes they're both buildings, sometimes they're an improvement, one or. For the Indian Empire here, we got the War Elephant, which is a unique ranged unit, and we also got the Mughal Fort, which gives us tourism and replaces the castle. So we're going to go ahead and begin. So almost every game that you build, or every game that you begin under the standard start, is going to look like this. You've got your world here. You only see a little bit of it. You've got your settler, and your warrior is what every civilization starts as. What you see right now is probably not what you'll see in game. I have, I have my resource icons and my yield icons on. You're probably going to see this when you first learn into the game. This is really pretty to look at, but it's not very descriptive, and it doesn't really tell you what's going on other than there's a river here, there's hills, and there's certain types of terrain, some sort of rocky thing, and some stuff over here. Now you can hover over them, and that's one way to kind of tell you what's there. So I hover over here, it's grassland, it gives me 2 food. There's stone here, and it gives me 2 food and 1 production. But you're probably going to want to go with a... what I like to do is I like to click both of these, and this will tell me, 1, what the general resource output is, so you get food on all these places, production, and then 2, what resources, general resources you have. I'm gonna do my best not to describe how really simple stuff. I'm not gonna explain how to move. That you can all learn in a tutorial. I'm really only going to try and explain tricks and kind of teach you certain things that are a little more complicated that the game may not do as good a job of explaining to you. So I'm going to go ahead into my research here, and then now I'm going to look at my research. Usually when you're starting to pick your first research, you may not necessarily need to set an early strategy. Some advanced players know, like, they want to build a certain wonder starting out. My gist of it is I like to see what I've got around me. I have truffles and I have stone. So truffles are usually something you want to exploit right away. It requires trapping. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my tree here, and I see that trapping is another tier of research. So I'm going to go ahead and just queue that up. So we'll go through animal husbandry and then do trapping. So to research both of those. That way we'll be able to work these as soon as possible. And I always start a monument first. Really what you should start is depending on your playstyle. I like to go monument first because I like to... Basically, at the early game, what you're going to want to do with your warrior is just use him to explore. So as you're roaming around, try and direct your warrior to finish his turn on either hills or in a wooded area. But be careful to try and allow yourself to have open terrain. When moving, there are certain penalties to movement. For example, under normal circumstances, my warrior can move up to 2 tiles per turn. That is if it's just flat open terrain. Now, if I tried to move him into the forest, like you see here, and I'm going to demonstrate it, his turn is immediately over. Okay, so when you move him onto hills or into woods or jungles, it halves their movement speed. Now, things like cavalry can move through them and suffer a little bit of a lighter penalty, but they still are suffering a penalty. So when exploring, to maximize your exploration, try and keep them on open terrain. But you can finish on woods. So if I had gone from here into there, then it'd been fine, and then I could go here to here. Now we've started in the rough area. If we leave and go somewhere else, we have 2. As long as they're moving through a flat area, being on a having kind of terrain is fine. So it's good to finish the turns, especially on hills, because hills grant bonus vision. But always be moving through flat area. This right here is called an ancient ruin. You want to beeline for these because they give you certain bonuses. This one's kind of crummy. It only reveals where nearby barbarian encampments are. Barbarians are early game hostile units. They're not belonging to any sort of civilization. They're just going to harass your empire. Do not take them for granted, because they can, if you leave your civilization undefended, they can kind of wreak havoc on it. Oh hey, we made our first civ.
Mina ngingushaka wakwazulu. Ngiyinsizwa yamabutho. Ungakusho okufanayo nawe.
So we have met a civilization that is unique to this expansion. The Zulus. This is Shaka Zulu of the Zulu Empire. Now, starting out in the ancient age, there's not really anything you can do. Eventually, one of the early things that you can research is, I think it's writing that allows you to put embassies, and that will grant you vision on each other's capital. So here I am. I'm right next to the barbarian with my warrior, and I want to go over here. Now, looking at the terrain, it looks fine. This is flat terrain, even though it's stones. It's still flat terrain because of desert. Under normal circumstances, if the barbarian wasn't here, I'd be able to move there right fine. But because the barbarian has zone of control, me trying to move through it and on is going to have my movement speed. So because I had to go through his zone of control, it has my movement speed, and I wasn't able to get there until next turn. Next thing I'm going to research, and it's recommended by many of my advisors, and by the way, if you're ever kind of lost as a new player on what to build, always look for these. These are kind of what your advisors recommend you get. If you're new and you're not really sure what to buy, the advisors tend to know pretty well what's a good thing for you to get. As an advanced player, again, you always should decide what is best for you. It just so happens to turn out that I do want a scout. The scout is a lightly defended unit. It is weaker than a warrior. I think it only has a strength of 5, while a warrior has a strength of 8. Strength is down here. But what is unique about a scout is that it can move through, finger quotes, rough terrain like this hill here and not suffer its movement penalty. So it's really useful for exploring early on in the game. Now, what's nice about the scout is because it's, or what you should know, I should say, is because he is lightly defended, you really, if you see barbarians with him, turn around. That's a general rule of thumb. There are some exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, you really shouldn't go toe-to-toe with barbarians as a scout. What's nice about him is that he is good at running away. So while moving through a lot of jungle or a lot of forest, your scout is not going to be slowed. So he'll be able to move through it easily, whereas your enemy, and we're going to avoid that encampment up there, whereas your enemy will be slowed by that terrain. And the barbarians don't get scouts to attack you with. So it's usually good to avoid the scouts or avoid the barbarians with the scout and just keep using them to explore. Let's talk briefly about policy. Policy you get from your culture, going up per turn. Whenever it fills up, you get to pick your different policies. It is usually not smart to just kind of throw your policies, you know, all around and just kind of have a hodgepodge thing. You usually want to max out certain trees, and that really is dependent on your specific style of play. I would never recommend honor. It's really just kind of a pointless tree, in my opinion. I've never really seen a good example for it. As a matter of fact, when maxed out, it only gives you like combat bonus versus like barbarians, which is not all that useful. Tradition and liberty are usually the ones that most people will start with. Tradition is good for your smaller types of civilizations if you're only planning on building a few cities and then specialize those cities. Liberty is good if you want to expand because it gives you free settlers and also allows you to produce them faster. Same thing with workers. And then just kind of general things to boost your large civilization. I'm going to go with the small civilization since I've got the Indians here. And so when you first adopt it, it's going to give me a greatly increased rate of border expansion and also grants 3 culture in my capital. So that's great for us. We're going to go ahead and take that, and we're going ahead with the tradition tree. I'll probably also go with piety. That helps with religion, which we will talk about shortly here. So what we had happen is my spearmen attacked this warrior group here, and spearmen being stronger than warriors are going to win most engagements. Even though this warrior has better terrain by being on a hill, I still outclass him. And when you hover over it, it'll kind of show you what the chances are for your victory there. The flashing colors are the damage both of you will sustain. As you can see, theirs is much bigger than mine, so I'm going to go ahead and attack them.
تحياتي أنا رمسيس الإله إنني تجسيد حي لمصر أب وأم جميع الحضارات.
So we've met the Egyptians along with the Shaka, so they're both close to us. As you can see, the Egyptians are only a stone's throw away from me. Now this could be a bad thing, especially if you are a rapid expansionist kind of player, because usually you're going to end up competing for borders. Now because I'm India, I'm probably not going to settle too many cities, so I doubt I'm really going to run into a big problem with Egypt on that note. But usually in the early game, neighboring civilizations will in one way or another end up at war. Either they will declare war on you because you're just kind of competing for land, or they're just expansionist and don't like you, or you decide that for whatever reason you've had it with them. Maybe they have a resource that you really want to get. Maybe you are just playing a military playstyle and you want to go and take them out. Either way, you kind of have to be cognizant of that. So, because I have started my game, I kind of want to be looking for a strategic place to build my city. Okay, now we're at a point where we're going to pick our next policy. I actually don't have too much experience with tradition. I tend to go liberty, as I said, because I like to do expanding. But we'll take a peek at this, and I'll try and explain what I decide to pick. So 15% production when building wonders, and +1 happiness for every 10 people in a city. That actually goes good with our unique perk, which has reduced happiness for the number of people. So this, along with our perk, will actually give us great happiness if we have large populations in our city. This provides a free culture building in our first 4 cities. I think for us that's going to be monuments. This is garrison units cost no maintenance, and cities with a garrison gain 50% ranged combat. That's actually good for small civilizations. It allows them to better defend themselves. Right now, I think I'm going to go with legalism. Then we will take the aristocracy next. The reason I'm taking legalism is because right now we obviously are never going to, we're not anywhere close to taking advantage of that +1 happiness per 10, and we don't really need the garrison unit bonus at the moment. My spearman has taken a bit of damage by taking it to the barbarians, while my scout is okay. So we're going to discuss real quick healing. Now, I'm sure this will be talked about in the tutorial, but I'm going to touch on tips and tricks for healing. When healing a unit, when it's right next to a city is going to be, actually when it's right inside of a city is going to be when it heals the fastest. I think it's 30% of its health per turn. At the very least, you want your units to be inside your own borders. That will make them heal relatively quickly. Healing outside of your own borders is about normal healing speed, and healing inside an enemy's borders is painfully slow, and is not all that recommended unless you have a unit with a medic upgrade. So because he's pretty hurt, he's about half health right now, we're going to move him right next to our city, have him heal up before we send him out again. Now, you'll notice up on my right there, I have the scoreboard up. Not everybody does. You can turn it on in the settings, but I like to use it for quickly checking my score between the other players. If you don't have this up and you don't want it up, but you still want to check your score, you can just go right here under the Diplomacy tab, open it up, and it'll show you everybody's score there. As you can see, I have about 10 less score compared to Ramses and Shaka. I wouldn't worry too much about your score this early on. It's not really a good indicator. Score will shift so quickly with wonders and cities that it's really not important to take note of until closer to the mid-game. So for now, I wouldn't worry too much about score. So our worker is done. And by this point, you might have a second city. It's up to you to decide which of those is more important to build on. Because I only have one city, obviously, it's not all that important for me. I don't feel like my production is all that bad, so I'm not going to build a mine over here. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and build a farm on this plot, and it'll advance it to... this farm, obviously, is something that will give you more food, and as you advance in tech, it'll give you more and more. So because we kind of benefit from having lots of people in our town, it's probably good that we go ahead and focus up on food. So I've reached a point where I have to decide what I'm going to build next. I want to build another warrior, but the problem is he's not going to end up bleeding our economy. And I also don't want to build a caravan because that trade route will actually get raided by this barbarian encampment here. So even though it's recommending I build one that'll help me out with the gold situation, it's not really prudent to do that right now. So I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to build a settler. We'll go ahead and get our second city out there. Came up with my other technology. I finished trapping, so that means I can go ahead and exploit the truffles. Now I have to decide what I want to build next. Looking at pottery and archery and mining. Because I don't have mining, I can't build a mine there, so obviously I couldn't have done it even if I had wanted to. Archery is usually important if you find yourself really fighting a lot of barbarians, because archers are really good against barbarians. But I'm not really in dire straits yet, so I think I'm going to do is I like to focus on my religion, so we'll go ahead and get pottery so we can get access to our shrines and start producing some faith. Now what we have here is Shaka Zulu, and I'm surprised it happened this early. Shaka Zulu has approached us with a proposal to attack Ramses II and go to war with him. I don't want to help him. And the reason being is because Shaka Zulu is a very aggressive civilization, the Zulus are. And what you'll learn about this game is each civilization kind of has a unique personality to it. So the Zulus are very well known in this game for being a very military-driven kind of empire civilization, which means they're going to be attacking people constantly. Now, ideally, I would like to have Ramses as an ally because if he's close, if Zulu's close to me, it's only a matter of time before I become a target as well. So even though he's asking me for help against the Egyptians, I know that he's a militant type of civilization, and I know that's probably a bad decision. So you have multiple options here. You can get the war started right away. You can ask him to give you 10 turns to kind of build up your army and move them into position to attack them, which they'll happily do. You can say, "How dare you," which tends to result in a negative approval of you if you say that. Or you could just say, I'm sorry, we don't have any interest in this, and they won't really feel all that bad. As a matter of fact, you can even see here, they already covet my lands, which means usually if they covet your lands, they're probably going to go to war with you soon. So probably best that we not aid them in their war against what is potentially a ally of us. They're not an ally yet, but they could be soon. Now I have a worker, and they're starting to improve, and then some barbarians showed up, so we want to take care of that really quickly. So we'll go ahead and direct our spearmen to attack the warriors, and they'll make pretty easy pie out of them. Combat is never usually completely over in one turn. You're going to have to fight multiple times in order to wipe out a unit in most cases. So if you had multiple units, you could attack them multiple times. You'll probably beat them in one turn, but because we only have spearmen over here, it's going to take a little while. That's fine. As long as we keep them away from our workers, that is what's important. Unfortunately, that means we're probably not really going to be able to explore with our spearmen, but at least we're getting experience and able to build him up. Now, something I didn't talk about with the scout. They do have an ability where you can go under the advanced menu right here. It's this weird side arrow thing. You can bring it up, and among their options is the automated explore button. When you press that, they'll just wander around, revealing all empty terrain. They'll prioritize empty terrain, and if they see ruins, they will beeline for them. I don't like explore early on because more often than not, they'll blunder into barbarians. And it ends up getting them killed faster than you can build them out. So I like to micromanage them early on. Maybe you're not the micromanaging type and you'd rather them just explore on their own. That's fine too. But that's really kind of something that's up to you. Our worker's done building a farm. We're not producing any food right now because we're building a settler. Settler is the only unit that uses not only your production, but also your food to build, because it's technically drawing from the population of your town in order to build a settler. So you can't really outproduce. You can't really have a bunch of production and be like, hey, my settler's not going to be done. You need some food in order to help that along as well. So as long as I'm building a settler, my town itself is not going to grow, but my settler will be built faster. So I'm not terribly worried about that. 6 turns, it's pretty good speed. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I've noticed that my gold output is not all that great. I'm going to go ahead and send my worker over here to this truffles here, which when worked will give me +2 more gold. So I definitely want that. So we'll go ahead and work that. Now Ramses is approaching us, asking us to set up an embassy. He's doing it for 1 gold per turn. I'm okay with that because I already know where his capital is, so I don't really need an embassy there. Not at the time being. Embassy will also grant you diplomatic relations early on and better ones, but for now it's not all important to have good diplomacy. So yeah, I'll take his gold. As I said, I need a better economy, so we'll go ahead and do that. And my next policy has come up, so let's go ahead and pick. Ooh. See, +1 gold, -1 happiness for every 2 citizens in the capital. That's actually pretty neat. Both of these are pretty neat. +10% growth and +2 food in the capital, and -1. So these kind of build off of each other. So I decided instead of doing this thing, I'm going to go ahead and do my landed elite. That will, for one, boost the now my populations go, or my settler, instead of taking 6 turns, will take 5. Which is good. So go ahead and take that growth, and I think what we're going to do is, in keeping with our faith theme here, we're going to go ahead and take calendar next. As I said before, when moving your units around, it's usually better to end their turns on top of hills. The reason being is because, as you saw there, when they get into combat, everything is determined by certain modifiers. Now, being a civilization, we gain just a general combat modifier against barbarians, which means that in combat, all of our units, even if they're the same general strength, are going to be just usually stronger than them than normal. Fighting a normal unit. Now, on top of that, we gained an additional bonus because I had my spearmen sitting on a hill. Now, apart from the fact that I bombarded those warriors with my city and had attacked them beforehand, and they were low health, and so brought them down to low health. Now, my spearman was still in the green, with, I think, 73 hit points out of 100, so 73% of his health left, where the Barbarian had almost 25%. On top of that, the Barbarian decided to attack me. Now, the Barbarian was on a terrain that was just normal, whereas I was on a hill, which meant I got a defense bonus for being here, which meant not only was I stronger than them because I'm part of a civilization, but also I was stronger than them because I was on a hill. It's usually good to end your unit's turn on top of a strong defensible position. Hills probably give you the strongest defensive bonus. Forests and jungles give you a bit as well. It also takes into account attacking across a river. For example, if my spearman was right here and the barbarian was right here and attacked me across it, I would get a significant defensive bonus for defending there. Now, as you can see, my settlers are done. It is usually not good practice to send your settlers out all by their lonesome. You kind of usually want a unit nearby to kind of scout ahead and offer protection for them, because they cannot fight or defend themselves against barbarians or enemy units. They don't have any sort of strength, so if a military unit moves on top of them, it will capture them or kill them. So we don't want that to happen, so we're sending our spearmen out to scout ahead and make sure that no barbarians get to them in time. Alright, so now it's come to what are we going to build, and I know exactly what I'm going to build. I'm going to build this shrine so we can start producing faith and hopefully be working towards our own religion. So as you can see there, I was making some maneuverings because I saw a barbarian, and I did not want to leave my settler in a position where the barbarian could capture them. If they're anywhere within 2 tiles of them, that means most likely that the warrior has vision on them, and barbarians tend to beeline for defenseless units, even if it means certain death. So I maneuvered my settler around the hill and to my spearmen, and then I also attacked the warriors just to kind of ward them off. Now I think I've also picked where I'm going to have my city settled. It's going to be right here along the coast. Now, what's dangerous about this, as I mentioned earlier about where I was planning on settling my city before, right here next to the Egyptians, this city is going to be next to the Zulu, which are arguably a much more dangerous civilization to be building next to. So I have to take that into account. I have to realize that, you know what, this most likely means war at some point with the Zulu. But the reason I'm settling here is, one, it's got a luxury resource, which is very important to take advantage of. You always tend to want to build your civilization near a luxury resource. I also wanted to have at least one port. I don't have a port over here yet, and I felt like this would be a good area to port because it's only got one water tile. Water tiles are usually generally pretty useless. They don't provide much in the way of food unless there's a fish tile there, so it's usually better to have land tiles. Now, what's also could be bad about this plot is it's got a lot of desert around it. Desert is a pretty crummy terrain, along with tundra, in that they don't really provide any resources. As you can see, for the most part, all this stuff provides resources. This desert means jack all. Hills at least provide production, but the desert, except for the ones next to the river, are not all that great. Now, thankfully, I settled on next to desert tiles that, for the most part, have specific general resources on them, so it's a little bit better. But again, it's a crummy location, but I wanted a port over here and I wanted this resource, so it ends up working out for us. It also means that we don't have to trade with the Zulu, which I don't want to rely on them because I'm anticipating war with them. So the fact that we have a copper resource and they have a lot of copper resources means that we will never need to rely on them for copper. So strategically, it's also a good idea to have gotten that. Also, we're done here with the shrine at our capital, which is good. Got a good bit of unhappiness, unfortunately. I think what we're going to do is we're looking at a potentially bad situation when it comes to income, so we're going to go ahead and build our caravan. Okay, so the Zulus are obviously not happy that we moved right next to them. I don't plan on actually settling any other cities right next to them for the time being, so they're demanding that we cease settling near them. Now what this means is you can either tell them we're sorry and we'll stop, or we will do as we please. If you say we'll do as we please, we'll suffer a relationship penalty with them. If you say, oh, I'm sorry and we'll stop, then everything's hunky-dory usually, and as long as you keep that promise for a certain set amount of turns, everything's great. If, however, you apologize and tell them you won't, and then do settle a city next to them, you suffer a huge relationship bonus with, or penalty with them, and they most likely will go to war with you. Because I don't plan on settling any cities next to them, we're going to go ahead and tell them sorry, and that way we can potentially stave off war for the time being. Okay, so now it comes to a situation where it's, hey, what does my worker want to build next? Now, we don't have mining yet, so we can't mine out our hill, which would start to give us production. We don't have masonry to work on these stones. And I don't think I have... Oh, no, I could work that cow plot. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have him start constructing another camp here. The problem is, with luxury resources is, once you have one, that's all the happiness you get out of it. Now, you see each of these say +4 happiness. Well, you only get +4 happiness for one iteration of truffles. So, as you can see, potentially I'm going to have 3 from this city alone. While that's great, I only particularly get the happiness from one of them. Now, I'll still get the gold, and I'll still get all the other production from that tile, but I'm not going to get the happiness. And what that means is I'll have, from this city, 2 surplus truffles. So I had 3, I gained most of the benefits from 1, but I'll have 2 left over. What that means for you is you will most likely want to trade that with other civilizations. If you're sitting on surplus resources, generally that's not all that great. Now there are exceptions to that rule, and if those ever kind of come up, I'll point them out, and you'll probably encounter them during your gameplay if you're methodical and read through all the descriptions. But for the most part, as a general rule, you don't want to have surplus, and if you do, you want to trade those away, because at the very least, they'll get you gold and other bonuses. But don't be frivolous with them. Save them, because sometimes they might give you, you might get a better deal out of holding on to it and trading it to someone else than trading it to a specific civilization. But don't hesitate to trade your... Did I see what I really thought I'd... Okay. So, if a situation like this presents itself... if this happens, what I've found is an encampment that is literally empty. Now, I saw the warrior walk off. He's probably capturing a worker or something like that. But what it means is that we get a free opportunity to take it out. They don't defend themselves. So what I just did is I took out the encampment. It got me 25 gold for no damage to me. And this warrior, because he's already got a settler, is probably not going to attack my scouts. So I was safe to make that move. What it does is... strategically, it probably wasn't all that great an idea, because it removed a source of harassment for both of my rival civilizations. But on the other hand, it got me much needed gold early on. Unfortunately, it's a scout. He's not powerful enough to attack this barbarian. I wouldn't mind getting the settler. If you capture a captured settler, so this I think was a settler from the Zulus, which works out great for me, as a matter of fact, because that means their expansion has been hamstrung. If you were to happen to capture this, you would gain an opportunity to either give it back to them for a relationship bonus, or you could keep it yourself, and it would turn into a free worker that you could use at your leisure. Okay, so what you just saw was that warrior attacking my city directly. If you've played the tutorial, you've probably picked up on this already. It's a difference from previous Civilization games. In previous Civilization games, you had to keep a military unit on a city. Otherwise, if another military unit marched right in, it would immediately take it over. Now, cities have a static defense. And for the most part, a city without any military units can protect itself really well against lone military units, not so much against an army. Now, this was just a lone warrior. He decided to attack my city, and it did almost negligible damage. It actually took it down to here, but at the beginning of each turn, it heals it back, or heals some of its damage back. So you can see, I think there's a small sliver of damage still remaining on there, which will heal back next turn. Attacking a city is really dangerous. As you can see, it hurt this warrior a great deal. which actually works out good for me because I'll just move this spearman right in and take him out. You want to avoid attacking cities, especially in the Ancient Age, until you get yourself siege equipment. That would be catapults, trebuchets, all that kind of stuff. The early age, you're really going... Archers do not cut it. A lot of people think, hey, archers can bombard from a distance, they can do cities. Archers are actually terrible at attacking cities. Don't use them. Use them for taking out units around it, but don't really use them for attacking the city directly. Alright, we're looking at our culture policy. I want minus happiness for the citizens in my capital, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And it brings our happiness back to 0, which is good. As long as we're breaking even, everything is fine. Okay, so what you're seeing happening here is that my borders are being raided by barbarians. Now, don't feel terrible because this will undoubtedly happen to you at some point in the game. So now the barbarians have moved onto one of my luxury resource tiles. This means that most likely, yes, its resource its improvement that I placed on it has been plundered, which means that now I'm no longer receiving the bonuses from that particular tile. That is the danger of having a warrior or a barbarian end up in your countryside, and also enemy civilizations, warriors and soldiers can do that as well. Because I don't have any military units here, I can't really beat them back, so that's unfortunate for us, but at the same time, we still have our truffles over here, so as long as he doesn't plunder this tile, we should be good, and I think our city will be able to kill him in time, so we don't have to worry about him killing that one as well. I might have to eat my own words here, but for now, I don't think so. The warrior also plundered our farm, so that's going to be dangerous, but we can go ahead and kill him because he made the mistake of attacking the Egyptian scouts down here. So we'll go ahead and wipe him out. That leaves our worker safe to come out and go ahead and fix all the damage that the warrior has done. I also finished my caravan. Now, it originally finished here at Delhi, and I could have started my trade route over here with Thebes, but I didn't do that. The reason being is because, as you can see right here, as far as I know, there is still a barbarian encampment over here. Which would mean that this trade route would undoubtedly be plundered as it moves back and forth between here. But what I did do is move it up here to Mumbai, and now I can send it right up there to the town of Ulundi, or if I wanted to, I could send it all the way across there to Thebes. Now, I feel like it might be safe to send it to Thebes, but for now, I think I'm just going to send it to Ulundi. I'm not going to get as much research out of it, but at least I'll get the gold, and my general economy will improve. What also happened is that my scouts were attacked by a warrior. Now, as you can see, my scouts did suffer more damage than the warriors did, because as I said, scouts suffer pretty bad damage in general combat. So usually what's best to do with them is just get them the heck out of there till they can get out of enemy's vision, and then heal them up before you start exploring with them again. Alright, so this is a dangerous situation I've found myself in. Here I am next to the barbarian encampment where I've come across a ranged unit. Now, if this was a warrior, he would have suffered a lot of damage and be in pretty rough straits right now. But because he is a spearman, he's not going to take too much damage from the archers. But because they're ranged units, it means that they attack through bombardment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move right next to them. Now, this probably means they're going to get one more attack off on me, but ranged units are awful in direct combat, and as you'll see here, I'll be able to engage them directly with my spearmen and do some pretty big damage to them. And there you go, our spearmen with a devastating attack took out 74% of the archer's health, and we'll be able to kill them easily next turn, while they only do a little bit of damage to us, so all things considered, worked out great. What I also wanted to talk about is I went ahead and took Wheel here, now that my next point of research is done. Wheel will give us access to not only our unique unit, but also the road, which will be able to connect our towns for bonuses in production, as well, in economy, I should say. As well as typically just a quicker move time for one, because roads offer quicker travel, and under some circumstances, additional happiness. We're not going to build in that tree, so we're not going to benefit from that, but we will benefit from it at a better economy. I've also finished my archer here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move him out and start engaging these barbarians that have become pretty pesky to our south here. Because we have a military unit on the field around our capital now, I feel safe to bring my worker back out. I'm going to go ahead and bring him out and start working on the truffles again. And as said before, we're going to go ahead and take out this archer and then probably heal up our spearmen and wait for that worker to be done up in Mumbai so that he can come and assist us against the barbarians. Now that our town is done, we're faced with another decision. What do we build? I could build another unit and continue to expand my military, which would be a prudent decision. But also what I want to do is I want to think about the late game. And that's always what you want to do, is you want to blend meeting the needs of the now between meeting the needs of the future and what you want to do down the road. So because I want a religion really fast, I'm going to go ahead and take Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a wonder. Many wonders in this game for a lot of investment of time and money, and potentially the risk of not getting it, because if another civilization finishes this wonder before I do, I lose, and I don't get that wonder. I just get some money back for my investment in time. But what I would get out of it is +5 faith, which is huge. I'm only making 1 faith per turn, so +5 will be huge bonus to faith in this early game. Wonders also do well to increase your score, and they're just important for just in the game. It's just important to build wonders. You can get by sometimes without ever building wonders if you are going for like a military victory or for a expansion victory, but for smaller civilizations like what we're going to be with only a few cities, it's probably wise to invest in wonders. And the reason being is just because, as I said, it's going to determine how effective you are as a civilization. So without this wonder, I wouldn't be getting the whole additional faith that I'm hoping to get, which would in turn build my religion. Now, it doesn't help me out right now. Obviously, if I build Stonehenge, it doesn't help me with the barbarians. It doesn't really help me against the Zulu. But in the long run, it's going to allow me to build a religion, which, assuming that I can hold out in this level of the game, assuming that I didn't just break my camel's back with that decision, I'll end up benefiting from it in the long run, which I've decided is more important for me. Zulu is approaching me once more, and this kind of has me a little bit scared. If you have a history of bad relations with a civilization, and suddenly they're friendly with you, especially if they're a military civilization like the Zulu, they might be shaping up to stab you in the back pretty soon. And it's kind of worked off like clockwork. Now, civilizations are pretty keen, for the most part, to be on friendly terms with you unless you give them a reason to dislike you. But for militant civilizations, if they are friendly with you and it seems like they'd been disliking you before, then suddenly are friendly with you, you should be a little bit worried, so I am. But fortunately, he's approaching me right now with the proposition of attacking the Egyptians. Once more, I want the Egyptians as an ally, so I'm not going to agree to that settlement, and I'm just going to pray that he does not attack me. Now we have been approached by Shaka, who wants to trade us some gold per turn and horses in exchange for truffles. I'm not too keen on the gold per turn just yet. Now, what I'm going to do is something that I said, it's going to sound weird. When I settled my city of Mumbai, I said we didn't want to rely on the Zulus for copper, and we don't. But I don't have the copper captured yet. I don't have it improved. I only got 1 worker, and he's working on my capital right now. So what I'm going to do is, for the next 30 turns, I'll go ahead and allow this deal to happen. That way I'll just benefit from the copper as if I've already improved it, and my happiness won't take a huge hit, and everything will be hunky-dory and okay. And that way, by the time this deal runs out, I should have that copper improvement, or tile improved, and then we'll move on. If he continues to want truffles, we'll move on to some sort of different deal with him. But for now, we'll go ahead and take that and benefit from the happiness from it, and everything's all happy and great. Okay, now what's happened is you see this little lightning bolt appear. I have been given the opportunity to create a pantheon. I think we're going to be the first civilization to be able to create one, which is kind of surprising. I'm not usually the first civilization Oh no, okay, apparently Thieves got one as well. I didn't notice that. But we get to start a Pantheon for about 20 faith, and which is great. Pantheon is the foundation for your religion. It's not a religion yet. It's a Pantheon to the gods. It's a basic thing. Allows you a little bit of a perk starting out. So we're going to go ahead and take that. We're going to take a peek at it and see what we have. So as you can see, we have this whole host of perks that we can pick up. For example, like God King allows us that our palace provides +1 to all yields. So everything around our capital gets +1. So all this food, +1. All the production here on these truffles, +1 food, +1 production, +1 gold. Makes our capital awesome. It's really good for small civilizations. So that'd be great for us. Another one that could be great for us is the Goddess of Love. So we've already got a bunch of things that improve our happiness based on the population. This one also gives us +1 happiness from cities with a population of more than 6. So, you know, this city almost is only 2 away from having that +1 happiness. +1 happiness from cities on rivers. You know, we get one from that. +2 from quarries. We'll have 2 quarries here, so we could get +2 faith from both of these areas. We'd also have one here, here, and here. Ooh, I might actually do that. That would really help our faith out, and we're going to have a lot of quarries, I think. Yeah, look how much stone we have. That presents a tough decision for me, because I was going to pick up the God King perk, but I do want to take that bonus to faith, especially when we end up building these 2 things, because that 4 faith from building these 2 here will help alleviate if we don't end up building the Stonehenge. And then at the end of the day, faith is always useful. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. It's weird because I don't usually do that, but I'm going to take a gamble. And this is going into what I said before. You always want to pick the things for your religion. You always want to make decisions based on your current game and your early game. So I don't have any quarries yet. So that particular perk is not going to be useful to me right now, but I'm looking down the road and I see that I have a lot of stone, a lot of marble around me, a lot of ways I can take advantage of that particular perk. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. It's against my better judgment because I still think God King would probably benefit me better here. But I'm going to go ahead and take the quarries because I want to be a civilization of faith. So we'll go ahead and take that. Then looking at our city of Mumbai, we see that our warrior is finally done, and we can start working on another structure. I'm going to go ahead and work on the shrine to get us more faith. We're going to send our warrior down. We're going to leave our city undefended for the time being and assist him in clearing out this area of hostile units. And the reason is because I think this is going to be where I settle my next city. Yeah, it's going to be right on this hill, right here. Actually, I might even do it on the coast. And that way I can... Ooh, maybe right here. Yeah, I'm talking myself in circles. I'm probably going to build them right there. Okay. So I've moved my warriors next to my spearmen, or next to, I should say, the barbarian, which is against my spearmen. What I'm benefiting from right now, let me go ahead and close that tree, is I have a flanking bonus. As you can see right there on the combat modifier thing, I get plus 30% combat for bonus versus barbarians. I also get plus 10% for a flanking bonus. If you have a friendly unit on the opposite end or anywhere around just the general region that is next to the enemy unit, you gain what is called a flanking bonus. So if you have a line of units here, you get additional flanking bonus for surrounding this guy, which gives you better combat advantage against him. So it's useful to surround your enemy with your units if you can, to give you better combat bonus against them. So what I'm going to do is, instead of letting my guy continue to heal, I'm going to go ahead and take him out right now with my spearmen, and that way to get him out of the way, and my spearmen can heal up while my warrior goes on to face the encampment directly. I'm also faced with research. Now, I kind of have to decide what is going to be the best research for me. It's recommending for me mathematics, horseback riding, and sailing. Now, riding will allow me to establish embassies. It'd also allow me to build libraries to improve my general research. Sailing lets me build boats and improve tiles like the fishing here. Horseback obviously will give me access to horsemen. It can also give me access to some of these improvements, or some of these structures. Mathematics allows me to build the hanging gardens, courthouses for occupied buildings, and a catapult. Now, because I'm not going direct offensive right now, I'm not really finding the mathematics all that useful. Neither am I finding horseback riding all that useful because I don't have any horses. Riding would be okay down the road, but I don't need it right now, and I don't really want sailing either. Ironworking is still a ways down the road. It's a lot of turns, as you can see, so it's not really worth looking into. What is the one thing they're not recommending for me, but what I'm thinking I'm going to get for a variety of reasons, is going to be masonry. It's only going to be 5 turns to complete. It gives me access to walls, which I want to build here on Mumbai to help defend it against any incursions that the Zulu might want to make against me. It also allows me to build quarries, which is what I need in order to benefit from my religious thing. So again, as I said, something you always want to be keeping in mind while you're playing Civilization is look down the road, not just at what you're playing right now. So because I want those research, because it's important that I get that done quickly so that I can improve these tiles, I'm going to go ahead and take masonry, and that way I can also build walls on my city up there. So I'm going to make an interesting decision right here. What you see going on is we've got archers and barbarian archers here on the encampment. I figure they'll probably build another unit here in the next turn, so it may not be that big of a deal, but I could kill them off right now. And that would leave this camp open, and I'll be able to move into it next turn. But the problem is there's the Egyptians right here. And I don't want the Egyptians to get 25 gold. Now, they would be able to wipe out the encampment for me once I kill off these archers because it'd be empty and they'll just move right in and get the gold for themselves. But I don't want that. I want to get the gold for myself. I'm selfish, so I'm going to hold off. Weird decision, I know, but I think it's going to pay off in the long run. Something else I'm doing is going against my better judgment and sending my spearmen right against the warriors, even though the barbarians have their own spearmen that just spawned in right next to it. I knew it was there, but made the decision to go ahead and send them in anyway. So we'll see if it pays off. I'm confident, and it could be my undoing, I'm confident I could outmaneuver them here. So what I'm going to do is I know I'll win this fight. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to take that encampment for myself. So I've got the enemy encampment. I'm still technically in the yellow. The problem is I have enemy spearmen here that is full health. Now most likely if I keep my warrior here, they're going to beeline for him. But what they can't do is they can't go directly at my warrior if I move him right here. He'll be safe there. And what is that? Why is that? And we're going back to what I talked about before, zone of control. The spearman is right here. Now he can move here, here, all around if he wants to, but he can't go after my warriors. The reason being is because he has to move through my zone of control. Now he can go right here, and that will lose him a turn. But he can't go directly, he can't attack them right now. Now what I am going to be faced with is what's going to happen after that. Will my warriors be able to hold him off after that? Because then they'll be trapped. They won't be able to go anywhere but here or here, and he'll be able to attack them from there. But again, I think I'm going to be able to outmaneuver him here and potentially win the fight without any casualties. We'll see if my confidence pays off. So the enemy spearmen made an interesting call. They decided to go after my spearmen directly. Now I can do something here, and I'm questioning the logic of it, but I want to keep these spearmen alive. They're a powerful unit. They're veterancy 2. They've got shock 1 and the medic ability, which means they're more important than my warriors. 1, because they're a more advanced unit, 2, because they've got more experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have them swap positions here. Now, my first instinct was to heal them, but I think that my warriors will be able to outlast them up here on this hill. Now we've seen what just happened there. My warriors won. Now, however, if I move either of them there, I think they're going to get killed. So I'm going to hope for is that fortifying them there will keep them alive. I'm going to fortify the spearmen there as well. And what they're going to do is they're both going to hopefully heal up at least a little bit before it gets to be the barbarian's turn. We'll see how that pays out. Okay, so as you can see, my warriors healed up a little bit before the fight began. At the end of your turn, if you set them to heal, they'll regenerate a little bit of their health. So he regen 10 HP. Now, he would have died there if I hadn't healed him. But because I did, and because he got that 10 HP back, he actually ended up surviving this combat. Now, my spearmen are safe. There's no way that this guy can kill them off. And as long as I leave my my warrior to heal up, I don't think the spearman will beat him either. So we outmaneuvered the barbarian enemy there. We took what was a potentially bad situation and turned it in our favor. Now we got to avoid having to rebuild those two units. We keep the veterancy of them both, and everything works out in the end. As you can see, my patience paid off as well. The scouts got out of position, and I was able to take out the archers here on this tile, and now I'm able to sweep right in, take the gold all for myself, and my civilization is happy as can be. Alright, so we've got another social policy, and we're nearing the end of our tradition policy here. If you look at my city of Delhi, it's only at number 6, and Mumbai is not growing all that fast either. They'll start to grow fast here shortly, but for now, I don't really need the happiness for plus 10. Now, that being said, garrison units is not really a thing for me because I'm keeping most of my soldiers out in the field. And there's another bit of importance thing to aristocracy there. An additional percentage of production when building wonders. Now, I don't get the additional happiness for the wonders, but I do get the production. And I'm a little bit concerned about my Stonehenge not being done in time, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. Now my Stonehenge is going to be done in only 7 turns. I'm hoping this will pay off. So as you can see, we've already finished one quarry up here. We're getting plus 2 faith from it now. We'll be done with the Stonehenge here in 2 turns, assuming that civilization is at 1 turn better than us. We'll have that plus 5 faith, giving us plus 8 faith, and then once this is done, it'll give us plus 10, which is going to be a good bit of faith. Not bad. In 20 turns from that, we'll be getting our own great prophet, which we can use to start our own religion. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that is all we're going to have time for. I hope you're going to enjoy this Let's Play. I'm going to try and be really descriptive with it. It's probably going to be annoying for some of you newer players, but really this is meant to be more educational. If you want to have fun, go ahead and let me know. If you're looking for something a little more interesting, a little more cool to watch, and I might do that other video I was talking about, filled with all sorts of civilization-y goodness, a whole bunch of intrigue and all that kind of stuff. In any case, I want to thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for part 2.